sorry if I'm in the wrong place. This is the first time I set up notifications, so I don't think it worked. I was supposed to be able to go into the notification and do the video straight from there, but it wouldn't let me. It said that the video had already published. So hopefully it wasn't like 10 minutes of me just sitting here going, that published this later. So if that's what you see, guys, I apologize. I'll try to link the two, so if you've gotten the reminder video, you'll be able to find me. So I am Jamie from the lifestyle blog, southernrevivals.com, where we DIY our way to the lifestyle that we want on the budget we have. Today we're going to be talking about backyard chicken keeping. Is it for you? Pros and cons. And as you can see, I am joined by the smaller baby chicks and the larger baby chicks, so there may be noise. Today's video is brought to you by the Chick Days event at TractorSupply.com, which ends this weekend on April the 29th. So if you're thinking of backyard chicken keeping, now's the time. They have everything that you need to get started. That's where, that's kind of how I got started and got connected with Tractor Supply. Is I'm in there all the time for feed and supplies and everything that you could want for chicken keeping. So I didn't get any questions, so I don't know if you guys had anything on your mind. I have my computer by me here, but I don't think, because of the whole, it didn't work out when I tried to go live earlier from the notification video. But anyway, so if you have questions, just post them now, and I can answer them on screen on live, or after the video's ended if you catch it on replay later. So we're just going to go over some things. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. And I kind of thought that might be a good thing to hear from somebody who is sort of more like you. The experts are great to go to for everything else, but just kind of getting an idea of what backyard chicken keeping might be like. It's loud. That's one thing. But just to kind of get an idea what it might be like and just share my experience with you a little bit. I have a paper here so to kind of keep me on track and remind myself of what to tell you. So if you are looking for chickens, Tractor Supply does offer its Chick Days event twice a year in the fall and in spring. This year's event's almost over, so you can catch it this weekend. But the thing that I am new to learning, and I always think, I'm going to get new chickens at spring, let's get new chickens, and then spring comes and goes, and I wind up not getting any. I didn't realize you can order chickens or turkeys or ducks throughout the year at TractorSupply.com/live birds, and they have dozens of breeds to choose from. So if you don't catch it during the spring, and you don't want to wait till fall, that's always an option. So again, because there weren't questions, if you have any, post them in the comments. I'm trying to stay sort of up to date on what's happening through my computer, but it's not wanting to cooperate. So hopefully I can see your questions there. If not, I'll get to them in the comments later. So I'm going to just start with some things I wish I had known. In case you missed the post that I posted on the blog last week about brooding baby chicks, I'm not going to get too involved in any particular topic, but if you have questions about brooding, which is just keeping baby chickens until they're ready to go out into a big coop, I have an entire post that covers everything I wish I had known when I first started keeping chickens, or baby chickens in particular. Because there's lots to know, but it's easy, sort of once you have an idea of what to expect from the process. So I feel like I missed something that I kind of wanted to say. Well, anyway, we'll get into it, and then maybe I'll think about it. But so some things I wish I had known. The obvious is they poop a lot, which people will tell you, but it's kind of like when people tell you everything will change when you have children. So I hate to be kind of dramatic about it, but people will tell you that chickens poop a lot, and you just kind of don't get it until you have chickens. So that's something to definitely be prepared for, if that's something that bothers you, or if they're gonna be in a particular area where people are. Or, which brings me to my next question, or my next thing I wanted to share. Free range chickens, which is what we have, which essentially means that they're allowed out free reign of the yard during the day. But free range does not have to mean free reign. We learned that really quickly. The first set of chickens that we got, they could see me in the office window from in front, so they would just kind of hang out and watch me weirdly, and then they would poop all over the porch. And so we quickly learned that that's not gonna, we're like dodging bullets on the sidewalk kind of thing to walk to the car. So we built a fence. It's a cute little DIY farmhouse fence, which I'm actually going to share with you guys later in the year, over the summer probably. Something easy to put together, but it's cute, and it keeps them in the backyard. And then last year we recently finished up our back patio, and it hadn't been a problem in the past having them back there, but it's like they think we built it for them. They think that the couch and the chairs are for them. So that's another little kind of area that we have to figure out. So just, keep that in mind. Keep your area in mind. That I'm remembering now what I wanted to say. The first thing about keeping backyard chickens is check your ordinances. You're going to want to know where you live, what the laws are, whether you're allowed to keep them in the first place, because you don't want to get into all of this and then find out that you're not allowed to have them and you have to get rid of them. Because I actually know a family that recently happened to. That's no fun. So that's the first thing I would say, is definitely check your ordinances. And then after that, kind of ask yourself questions about where you're going to be keeping them. Our property is 10 acres. Oh, you guys are back. I'm sorry, you're looking at the side of my head. Okay, so we're having internet issues. They're redoing everything with our broadband internet, and they're changing up some stuff. And so I hope it doesn't happen again, so I apologize. I can't really move to any other place because it's just kind of like that all over the house. So I'm sorry that we lost each other, but basically what I was telling you is we live on a 10-acre plot. Our house is actually on 5 acres, and so our chickens kind of get most of that. People will tell you that chickens won't go into high grass and whatnot. My chickens are forest dwellers. They go all into the woods, down by the pond. But, there's going to be places you're not going to want to have them. For example, on your sidewalk, probably on your front porch, or any areas where you might entertain or hang out with your family. So that's something to keep in mind. And also your property. If you live on a half acre, or you live in the city and you're allowed to keep chickens, they're probably not going to have free range, even if it's not free range. So just some things to keep in mind and think about before you get chickens, because that will definitely determine how many you can have, or you should have comfortably, based on your property and where you're located. So the next thing, I'm kind of trying to decide how to go about telling you all of my my pros and cons, because this one I'm going to just go ahead and cover it because it's like the thing that I keep thinking about saying. The thing that I think bothers me the most being a chicken keeper is that they die. And I know that's kind of a given, but it's like you think, I've read all the books, I'm doing all the things right, and they still die. And some of it, yes, is predators, and you can read up on that. You can figure out if you're losing chickens to predators. You can figure out what the predator is, just sort of based on some of the behaviors or the evidence left behind. We've been really lucky. We've had 2 chickens lost to predators, possibly another one, but I know for sure 2. One was a neighbor dog, and the other one I believe was a fox. But those are things that you can kind of combat if you know what you're dealing with. If you have free range chickens, though, it's just kind of a given that that's going to happen. And that it bothers me. But what really bothers me is, when they die sort of natural causes, and you think you've done everything the right way and they still die, and it's sort of devastating. I mean, it gets easier, but it's still hard. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. If you're somebody who's, I get hysterical when things die. I've gotten much better. I'll never forget the first chicken that we lost about 3 months into chicken keeping. I just went out there and she was gone, and it was horrible. But, it just happens. So don't beat yourself up too much about it, and be prepared. That's something that no one really prepared me for. I feel like I knew about predators, but not so much that they can just die. And the thing about chickens, and I go into this a lot in my brooding post, is that they are really great masters of disguise when it comes to being sick. If by the time you notice something's wrong, it can sometimes be too late, or they're very ill. And that brings me to my next point. I remember calling the vet and be like, I think my chickens are sick. And they're like, we don't do small animals. So that's something to keep in mind. You don't necessarily have a chicken vet. There are people who, at your county office, even at the state level, like the health department or ag, I'm not even really sure. When I did call my vet, I was put in touch with a man who's known as the chicken vet, who works for the state now, and he was kind enough to help me over the phone, and he even invited me to send him samples they could test so that they could find out if anything was wrong. So that's just something to keep in mind. You're not necessarily going to be able to call the vet. Even if your vet sees horses and cows and whatnot, they still may not see small animals. So just something I always thought I would go and see these big like farm animals that are vets. So I thought for sure, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they do see chickens, for example. So obviously my chickens are my pets. So some of this is going to depend on kind of how you're going into it. If you're considering yours for pets and for eggs, or if you're considering them for eggs and then butchering later. So just depends on your perspective. I mean, I get hysterical when they die, so clearly I don't eat them. But something else to keep in mind is that chickens lay pretty regularly for about 2 years, and then after that, their production slows down. So if you do have several, they will, just become more pet-like as the years go on. I have a chicken now that that I care for a neighbor who moved, and she's 8 years old. I've only been keeping chickens for about 5 years, so that's as old as those are the oldest chickens that I have. And actually the chickens that I currently have are rescue chickens, so that I've had for about 5 years. So I don't exactly know how old they are. They don't lay very many eggs anymore. So again, something to keep in mind. So if your perspective is not pet centered and you are really relying on eggs, you might want to think about what you're going to do after the fact. And the other thing is you're in it for the long haul. It's become trendy to keep chickens, and you kind of don't want to get into it for that reason and then find out that it isn't for you. And then, because, sadly, a lot of chickens have met the same fate as cats and dogs being surrendered, because they're no longer wanted. So you don't want to, that's kind of why I'm doing this. So you guys can figure out if it's something for you. I think a lot of people maybe get into it thinking it'll be cheaper than buying eggs at the store, and possibly it is, depending on where you live. We can buy eggs pretty cheaply where I'm from, but I know some of you, to get farm fresh eggs or to get nice eggs at the store, you're talking $6 a dozen. So it really does kind of depend. But I think all in all, I've never done the math for myself because that just isn't my focus. But that's probably not the best reason to get involved. You can sell your eggs at farmers markets. You do need a special license for that. I have one, and I used to sell it at my store when we had our furniture store in town. I used to also offer the eggs there. You can sell them at farmers markets, or even Tractor Supply even has I can't remember what they call it. Like handmade day or homemade day that they do like once a month, where you can bring your goods that you've made. So that might even be a place. I'm not 100% certain if they accept eggs, but I still think it's really cool that they have those. You can come in on a Saturday, designated Saturday, and sell your wares. So that's super cool. So yeah, I don't recommend getting involved with chickens just because you think the eggs might cost you less, because they may not. It may cost you more at the end of the day. But there's ways to recoup that cost. Two things. One, if you allow your chickens to free range, they're able to go out and get a lot of nutrients, which makes your eggs healthier. And your eggs are, to begin with, healthier from the store. You get to control what they're fed. I go into that more in my brooding post about the stuff that I choose to feed my chickens. But if they're able to free range, they're able to go out and get some grains and grasses and bugs and things that chickens eat naturally, your eggs are going to be healthier. And certainly you can have control over what your chickens are fed and that. So you can recoup your costs in that way, because they're going to eat a little less feed if they're able to get food from nature. You're still going to want to provide them with food though. So but then you can also sell your eggs. So that's something neat. I see a lot of people do egg crafts. So if you're into that, you can always turn your eggshells into some kind of craft. So there are ways to make some money, but I just wouldn't say getting involved with chickens to save you money is necessarily a good idea, if that makes sense. So those are just some of my things that I wish I had known, and pros and cons kind of mixed in there together. So it just kind of depends on what you're getting involved in it for. So my perspective is obviously for pets. So a lot of what I'm saying to you is coming from somebody who has a yard full of pets. And if that's not your focus, then you're probably going to look at this a lot differently. And if it's not your focus, if you're thinking of raising meat birds, for example, you're coming at it from a different angle anyway. So you probably know more on that front than I would, certainly. So some other pros, in addition to just having pets and it being a great family experience, something great to teach your children, is fresher and healthier eggs, which you kind of touched on before. And but the great thing that I didn't realize, because I did the first batch of chickens that I brooded all wrong. So I put them in a little area in our front yard, in our little garden area, until we could build our coop. And it is amazing, and the short amount of time that everything flourished. We've lived here for so many years, and I've never seen it look like that. So they're like built-in fertilizers for your grass, and they aerate your soil, and you can also use it to compost. So depending on how your coop is set up, you can either whether you use pine shavings or whether it's just a dirt floor or whatever, you can still scoop some of that stuff out there and turn it into compost. Chicken manure is hot, which means you don't want to put it directly on a plant. You want it to have about 90 days. I don't know what the correct terminology is, but you want to give it about 90 days so that it doesn't burn your plants. So just something to keep in mind. So if you're composting already and you're kind of throwing in those composting bins and you're moving them over, by the time it gets to that third bin, it's ready to put on plants and it won't hurt anything. So, but I mean, it definitely makes a big difference. We've actually started to fertilize our grass with the black hen manure, because it's amazing what it can do. So again, like I said, I am definitely not an expert. Just wanted to kind of touch on some of the experiences that I have had in case it helps you. We are in collaboration currently with Tractor Supply and building a coop. So you can follow along on that process. We had a small coop, which is also on my blog, but it wasn't very functional. We learned a lot from building that coop. So this is our fancy farmhouse chicken coop. So it's going to house these guys. So 24 chickens, one rooster who's going to be apparently 2.5 feet tall and about 12 pounds. So we love on him lots because we want him to like us. So you can follow that on my blog. I'm posting a little bit more chicken knowledge, how to brood chicks, how to introduce new flock members safely. And then I'm also posting along the way updates on our chicken coop build, and then it will culminate in the reveal towards the end of this month. And you can also catch behind the scenes sneak peeks. Like last weekend, I shared some of the framing process. This weekend we'll continue framing and then move into painting and the fun stuff. So you can check that out. It's under the highlights on my IG stories. So if you're on Instagram, you can check that out there. And remember, Chick Days at Tractor Supply ends this weekend, April the 29th, so you can still go in and get everything that you might need to get started. And then if you miss it, like I said, they have live birds available all throughout the year. So you got April, and you got spring and the fall for Chick Days in store, and then you've got year-round that you can order from tractorsupply.com/live birds. So, and that's turkeys, chickens, ducks. I would love to have ducks. We have ponds, so that would be fun. They also offer prefab chicken coops, and they're super cute. So they're from any kind of budget, from smaller coops to mid-sized coops to larger coops. So if DIY is not your thing, that's definitely something to look into. So I tried to follow along with you guys to see if there are any questions. I didn't see any. If I see any in the comments later, I will definitely answer you. If there's an idea for a video or anything that I haven't covered that you'd like to see, please feel free to let me know. I don't always talk about chickens, and I'm in the middle of actually redoing my son's bedroom now, so we're doing a teenage modern bedroom makeover, so you may find that interesting as well. So if you have any other ideas for videos or things you'd like for me to talk about, whether it's chicken related or not, please let me know. You can email me, you can leave it in the comments here, or you can send me a message. And if there's, internet's just really not being my friend today, but at least I didn't lose you guys live again. That would have been really embarrassing. So I'm not seeing any questions. I'll try to catch you later if you have any, so please leave them in the comments or send me a message if you have questions. I think I covered pretty much everything. Again, in the comments, I'm going to leave a link to the brooding post. So if you are thinking of keeping chickens, you can check that post out for a ton of information on doing that. And doing that, that's where your chickens start healthy. So it's helpful to kind of be prepared. It's kind of like a what to expect when you're expecting baby chickens kind of thing. So it's a little long, but it's sort of everything that you need to know to get started. So again, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. And speaking of experts, I do recommend a couple of things I talk about in the post, in my brooding post, which I'll link in the comments. One of them is the Chicken Health Handbook. I think it's backwards, so I apologize about that, but it's linked in my post as well. But this, if you don't have have any other book, this is the one to get. I read it before I ever got chickens, and still kind of felt like, you know, it's just one of those things where you kind of don't know till you know. The other people that I follow that are experts are Lisa from Fresh Eggs Daily and Kathy from The Chicken Chick, and they are both phenomenal about posting on their blog anything that you could possibly want to know about chickens. But the great thing about them too is that they are so willing to be helpful if you have questions or if you have an emergency. They're willing to get back to you and answer you. So if you don't follow them already, consider doing that. They do have blogs and also social media sites. And another great place to go is more like a forum is backyardchickens.com.